It's an honor this morning. Let me put it this way. My dad has been there for all of my challenges. He's been there for a lot of y'all challenges. Whether it's counseling, whether it's preaching, radio, some of y'all YouTube, whatever medium it's been, he's been there. So it's an honor for me to return the favor.
What's up? Welcome back to the channel. So I just wanted to start it off with that clip because it shows the point that I've been trying to prove, and a lot of other people are trying to prove as well, is that a lot of these people put these pastors up as idols and they worship them. Only God and His only begotten Son should be getting the glory. Now, of course, if Pastor Tony Evans has been there for his son throughout the years, that's a great thing, but you shouldn't make the congregation feel like they owe it to Pastor Tony Evans to do anything, because if anything, the people have been the one who have helped him get to where he's at. So it's just all mind games and manipulation. But I'm gonna go to the next clip really quick.
We're gonna go and do and be what God has called us to go and do and be. And when He returns, when my dad returns, when that time comes, we're gonna celebrate a victory we already knew beforehand that we had.
So that was a quick clip of Pastor Tony Evans' son, Jonathan Evans, basically implying that Pastor Tony Evans is gonna come back to the pulpit when the time is right. And that's one of the problems with a lot of these churches. They don't hold these so-called pastors accountable, and they let them do whatever they want. And then over time, they begin to disrespect you and basically play with your intelligence by doing things that are not biblically correct and manipulating you and playing off your emotions. And for those of us who are familiar with the scriptures, we know that a bishop must be blameless. And in Pastor Tony Evans' situation, he lied about his sin and he hid it for years. And he, for some reason, is just coming out now with it, and he still has not admitted what he's done. But I mean, it's really unfortunate to see how many people can be easily deceived. In the last video I did, I spoke about how I believe it's possible that Pastor Tony Evans is a Freemason. And I spoke about some of the symbolism he uses in his book and some of the hand signs he uses. And again, if that's the case, then he is definitely not who he says he is, and he is a deceiver. But I want to talk about his connection with so-called Pastor Robert Morris, because how could a so-called man of God be involved with somebody who's so wicked?
The Board of Elders of Gateway Church say they have accepted the resignation of Senior Pastor Robert Morris. This comes after a woman alleged she was sexually abused by Morris when she was a child in the 1980s. Cindy Clemishire says the abuse started when she was 12 and it continued until she was 16. On Sunday, Morris admitted he was, quote, involved in an inappropriate sexual behavior with the young lady, though he did not mention the girl's age. He went on to say that when the abuse was brought to light, he stepped away from ministry and entered counseling for 2 years before returning to the pulpit. Morris has not been criminally charged. The Board of Elders says prior to Clemishire coming forward, they did not have all the facts of the inappropriate relationship, including her age and the length of the alleged abuse. They released a statement saying, quote, "We are heartbroken and appalled by what has come to light over the past few days, and we express our deep sympathy to the victim and her family." Gateway Church has more than 100,000 members. We are gathering more reaction and we'll have an update at
Okay, so we can clearly see that Robert Morris is a very wicked man, and he molested a child. I mean, at least one that we know of. And he's been portraying himself as a man of God for all these years, and he's someone who definitely needs to be in prison. And I'm not familiar at all with Robert Morris and what he teaches and what he believes, but Pastor Tony Evans should have known better. And of course, we can all be deceived by people, but when you're a pastor, you have to be very careful and have a lot of discernment, because you're responsible for the flock and, you know, the people that are following you. And clearly, you know, he brought a predator around his congregation and around his church members. And I think that, you know, TD Jakes definitely got a lot of heat for being around Diddy and doing things he shouldn't be doing, and that was justified because he had no business being around Diddy and going to certain parties and doing certain things. But it's the same case here. Pastor Tony Evans should not have been around a man like Robert Morris, who is a predator. So, I mean, in my opinion, either Pastor Tony Evans' hands is dirty himself, or, you know, he doesn't practice what he preaches and he didn't test the spirit.
Put it in the words of 1 John chapter 4, try the spirits. and see whether they be of God or not. That is put them to the test. Is this consistent with my biblical commitment and worldview, or is it inconsistent? Everything you are part of won't necessarily be overtly Christian, but you can determine whether it's inconsistent or consistent with a Christian value system.
So yeah, that was a part of a clip where Pastor Tony Evans was pretty much dodging the question about Freemasonry, which again I talked about in my last video. But the point that I put that in there is because he knows about testing the spirits. So either he didn't test the spirit of Robert Morris after all these years, or he's involved in evil, like the majority of these mega pastors are. And as we've seen in that news report with Robert Morris, they were talking about the elders. I believe they're elders or the board of directors or something like that. But a lot of these elders, I believe, just in the same case as Pastor Tony Evans, they are covering stuff up. And then when stuff, comes out, they pretend like they don't know anything. But if you use common sense, you know that people know what's going on in these churches. At least some of the people that are, in charge or considered in leadership positions. They know the dirt that goes on, but they don't want to stop the money from coming in. And, it really vexes my spirit because I know there's good people in some of these churches and people who really are trying to follow God and follow Christ, but they're being misled and they're, following devils. They're following pastors who are so-called pastors. They're not really pastors. They're using the title. They're using God's name. Using the name of Christ to deceive people and to make money. But they're not really men of God. Most of them are just motivational speakers at best. And, they're very good at telling people what they want to hear and tickling their ears. But they rarely ever speak the truth. Because when you speak the truth, people get uncomfortable and, a lot of people don't want to hear it. So they know what to say and what not to say in order to keep people coming in or to keep the money generating. And just as a scenario, let's just say that Pastor Robert Morris Church, he's not a pastor, but that's what he's known as. Let's just say he said he had a sin and he said he was going to step down or whatever, but he didn't want to name the sin, and the congregation was basically saying that, it's okay, you don't have to name it, we still love you, we forgive you, this and that. And then they find out it is what it was, that he was dealing with children. And I'm definitely not saying that's the situation with Pastor Tony Evans because we don't know. And he said it wasn't a crime. But there is a sin there that obviously he does not want to disclose. And I just think that shows his true character, in my personal opinion. People may not agree with that, but people have the right to know when you're, if I'm not mistaken, with his net worth, $15 million. He's been pastor for 48 years or something like that. Had that church for a very long time. A lot of people have supported him and done many things to help his ministry. But when the time comes for him to reveal his sin and to be honest with the people, you see they don't get that. So if you just look at it from the perspective of if the situation happened with Pastor Robert Morris, like I just said, and the congregation didn't want to know, and then they found out that he was a child molester, it just sounds very foolish that some people would follow a man who says he's the man of God, supposed to be a leader, but you don't know what his sin was, and he stepped down, and now he's trying to come back without even revealing what his sin was. Now, I'm not saying he's trying to come back necessarily, but if his son said it, and he hasn't put out a statement saying that his son was wrong for saying that, then I can only assume that he does want to come back to the ministry. But yeah, I believe that most of these pastors just look at this like a business, which is why a lot of them try to pass it down to their family members. So I definitely do not believe that most of these men are true men of God. But I'm going to read this verse really quick. This is 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14. And it goes, "Be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness? And what communion hath light with darkness?" So yeah, we know the Bible is always accurate. And we know that Robert Morris is a very wicked man, and most of us can agree that Pastor T.D. Jakes is a wicked man. So what business does Pastor Tony Evans have with them if he's not a wicked man? It doesn't line up with the scriptures. And I understand a lot of people are not going to like that, but the truth is the truth. And a lot of stuff in the video can be considered my personal opinion. It could be considered as speculation, but of course there are some things that cannot be denied, and they are facts according to the Bible. But I'm going to pretty much wrap it up. Much love and respect to everyone who watched the video. I really appreciate it. And at the end of the day, the Lord is always in control, and he will always have the final word. I'm out. Peace.